In Matthew 3, verse 8 and 9, Christ is tempted by the devil. The devil says to Christ, if you will fall down and worship me, I will give you all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of those kingdoms, the glory and the power. Now we know from Genesis 2 and 3 that the devil is a serpent. And we can say that when the devil was tempting Christ, he was saying the equivalent of fall down and worship a serpent, and you will have the power and the glory. You will have power and glory by doing that. Now, I would have to say that in masturbation, it's a little bit similar, because the male organ is serpentine in shape, and so when a male agrees to stimulate himself, he is basically obeying that serpent. For the sake of what? For the sake of the sense of power or potency that he gets from that in terms of orgasm, and the glory, not so much glory, but pleasure. And at the time, that pleasure does seem glorious. So I wanted to say that the temptation of Christ in Matthew 3, verse 8 and 9, is similar to what each male faces, the temptation that each male faces, or you could say the reverse. What each male faces or is tempted with is similar in miniature to the temptation that Christ dealt with. But further than that, in homosexuality, it's the same temptation as far as it's the same type of sex organ, but instead of using your hand, it's an oral temptation, the temptation of oral sex, OS. And it's the words in Matthew 3, verse 8 about falling down, they would apply in the sense that when a man is performing oral sex, he is falling down or kneeling or sitting some of the time. And but it is a little bit like the temptation that Christ dealt with, in the sense that there's an issue of power, and the man doing the act may feel that he will have power over the person that he's serving. And okay, in the temptation of Christ, the devil does say, if you serve me. So there's that aspect. I forgot to mention that. But a man is serving another man, and he's serving the serpent. So it is a little bit of like a miniature version of the devil. And yes, there is the temptation or the offer. The devil offers Christ payment, in terms of the power and the glory. There'll be a payoff. Well, the same thing is true with homosexual temptation. A person doing the oral act is doing it because in the back of his head he thinks that this person that I'm serving will appreciate it, and he'll be my friend, or he'll be impressed. So it's the idea of glory, the idea of power. I'll have power over him because he'll need me, he'll appreciate, blah blah blah. So I would have to say that if you are looking for help, if you're not interested in homosexual action, and you are vexed by temptation, I think you should look at Matthew 3, verse 8 and 9, and also verse 10, where Christ gives his turn down. He turns down the devil, and he says, "It is written, thou shalt serve the Lord thy God, and him only. Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God only, and him only shalt thou serve." And it's also in Luke 4. Just as a side note, in Matthew 3, this particular temptation is the third temptation, while in Luke 4, this temptation is actually the second temptation. The second in Matthew becomes the third in Luke. So much for biblical inerrancy. Well, I shouldn't say it like that. I think the message is that the sequence, inerrancy, I believe in inerrancy up to a point. In other words, I believe that there is a certain amount of error, but it's negligible, and that Christ fulfills the Bible, and that means that whatever errors there are in the Bible, they are overwhelmed by the inerrancy of Christ, the living Word. Like, Christ said, "I come to fulfill the law," and that would mean that until it is fulfilled, it is not full. It's not inerrant. Something that's not fulfilled is not perfect, but Christ comes to fulfill it, and so that takes care of that. I'll put a written transcript, in the description box below this video, so that you can make a paper copy, because I'm expecting EMP to occur in October. I'm expecting a Russian attack, very likely in October, and then the tribulation will only be 5 months, and then Christ will come and defeat the Antichrist. The Antichrist will rule the world, actually rule Western Europe, for 5 months. Very, very short trip.